Hi, I'm Matt Baldwin, Regional Editor for Hagadone Media Montana. First off, a huge thank you for tuning into our podcast over the past year. Your support means the world to us, and it's inspired us to dive deeper into the world of podcasts. We've got some exciting updates to share with you. You might notice a fresh look and feel to our podcast lineup. We've revamped things a bit, breaking our shows into 4 distinct podcasts to make your listening experience even better. First up, Interlake News Now is simply News Now. Here you'll get Taylor's headlines, Melissa's local events, and all the timely news updates you need. Sports Now is now Keeping Score, where you can stay up to speed on local prep sports. Then there's Deep Dive. This podcast is all about exploring the stories of local people, businesses, and ideas. And if you missed last summer's Maritime Mystery series, don't worry, it's now the first season of Deep Dive. And of course, our monthly concert series, Press Play, now has its own podcast. Get ready for exclusive interviews with local musicians and all things Press Play. You can find links to all these new podcasts listed in the description of this episode, or simply search for Daily Interlake wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, thank you for your incredible support. If you enjoy what you hear, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review.
All right, well, I'm here with Wylie Gustafson. We are talking about your Press Play show, which is coming up at the 1st of November. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for joining me, Wylie.
Well, thanks for having me. Looking forward to coming to Kalispell.
Well, so you've had a really, really interesting career, and we're going to get all into all that in just a second. But I kind of want to know what you've been up to this summer.
So the summer is my really, really busy time because I actually have a couple careers. One is music, of course. I've been doing that for over 35 years now professionally. But my other career is ranching, farming in Conrad, Montana. So I have a horse ranch just out of Conrad, and we raise horses, and then also raise a lot of hay, have some irrigated ground. So we do a lot of irrigating and lots of things to do in the summertime besides touring. So
do you play a lot of shows in the summer?
Yeah, I mean, summer, we do a lot of outdoor shows around the Northwest and travel a little bit in the summertime, across the nation. So it's hard sometimes to find a balance, but it usually works out pretty good. I'm usually gone every other weekend with music, and then home for the rest of the time to do the haying and the horse things.
I was listening to your music. Everything is so distinctly Western, and just like it sounds like it's just like Montana music, What inspired you to pursue country Western?
Oh, I think my father, and the lifestyle that we live. So I'm a fourth generation, come from a fourth generation ranching family in Montana. So, I just was brought up in the culture of the West. And my father he liked to play guitar and do old cowboy songs and old folk songs. And that was a huge influence on me. And then we had some great radio stations around Conrad growing up. One was in Shelby and the other was KMON out of Great Falls. They had some great shows that had the contemporary country music that I was growing up with at the time, the 60s and 70s, but there was a great show on KMON that did traditional country music, which was music from the 40s and 50s. To me, the golden era of country music is 50s and 60s. So I really got hooked on that style of music growing up, listening to those radio shows.
Your music definitely reminds me of that time period specifically. In your opinion, what makes a good country Western song?
To me, what makes a good country Western song is songs that evoke and reflect our lifestyle. And unfortunately, you listen to modern country nowadays, and you don't get much of that. You get some artificial reflection of what life is like in Nashville. it doesn't speak a lot. I can't listen to a lot of modern country music because I don't get very much out of it. But the music that I do listen to would be like Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard. They sang about the country life, and you could their music just reeked of a lifestyle that was of the West and of country. Yeah. Same with Marty Robbins, guys like that, the songs really evoked a flavor of what we do out West. And to me, when I write a song or when I play a song, I try to make sure that the ranching families and farming families are going to understand it and get something out of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I was looking through your albums. One of the albums is named, is it something like 2,000 miles away from Nashville?
Yeah, 2,000 miles from Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's I have learned to be comfortable. You know, we do a lot of things in Nashville, and I've always been connected to Nashville since the early 90s when we had country music television videos and did a lot of shows on the Nashville network like Crook and Chase and Ralph Emery, some of those shows. So there's always been a connection there. And also, I love to go out there and do the Grand Ole Opry, one of my favorite things to do. So we've been on that show over 50 times as a guest. So I do have my connections to Nashville, but at the same time, I'm really comfortable not moving there. And I want to live this lifestyle out West. So when I write, it rings true.
This reminds me a lot of my talk with Rob Quist. He said like a lot of this, a lot of similar stuff. Because he did the whole Nashville thing, and then he moved back out here. And
yeah, it's hard to break in out there. And I spent a lot of time out there in the 90s, in the early 2000s. Because of our video airplay, our record company was based out of there. We had booking agents from there, but I never really felt comfortable there. And I never really felt that, Nashville was kind of looking for a different thing than I was. They were looking for something super commercial, and that, the turnstiles were just going there. Like a lot of my artist friends, they would have an album or two and then they'd get dropped, because the flavors were changing, or, they wanted another Garth Brooks, they wanted another Aaron Tippin or whatever. And that just wasn't my deal. I've always kind of done what I do. And it's been nice. I've learned how to have a career without having to please the corporate interests of Nashville. We've slowly grown our fan base over the years, and we have a lot of loyal fans all over the country and all over the world, really, that have learned to like our music, and they seem to be loyal fans. So we record every couple of years now and do an album. I think we have 23 albums out now. So it's nice to have developed that fan base over the years, and we keep finding new fans too that appreciate what we do. So I've kind of cheated a little bit and not had to move to Nashville like some of my friends and pursue a career there. I've always been able to have a career outside of Nashville.
That sounds less like cheating and more like good strategy.
Yeah, well, it's turned out that way. When I was younger, I really wanted to have the affirmation and respect of Nashville. And like the Grand Ole Opry likes us, and it's really, I consider that a huge honor. And there's a few other venues out there that we do well in, but for the most part, where we do well is out here. The crowds get us out here. We do a lot of cowboy gatherings. We do a lot of theater shows and things like that, where the ranching family shows up, the ranching families and the people who live our lifestyle, kind of gather and listen to our music and get something more out of it. So we're kind of, I guess, doing our own thing. Whereas Nashville, it's all about, radio and I guess it's mostly centered around radio and video streaming and things like that nowadays.
And how many times did you say you've played the Opry?
Over 50 times. I think it's been 53 or 54 times, which again, I consider a huge honor. And every time I go out there, it's a blast being on the Opry stage, sharing that stage at so many of my favorite artists shared in the 50s and 60s, and over my appearances there, I've met so many great artists like Hank Snow, and there's just been so many people that I've met backstage there. Grandpa Jones, some of these guys that you don't hear about much anymore, but I grew up with these guys and just love their music.
That's so cool. So I want to know a little bit more about how you got into music. When did you decide to start taking it like seriously, like a career?
I think my brother Eric needed a cheap bass player when I was in a young teenager, 13 or 14 years old. He was 4 years older than me, and he had a band and needed a bass player. So I joined that band, and that kind of got me started in a performing career, and then also got me interested in music overall, like writing songs. And I was writing music when I was 15 and 16 for my English teachers, and they encouraged me. So I always had a lot of good encouragement. And believe it or not, my parents encouraged me too. They liked music, and the music's kind of been a part of our family. So they encouraged me. And so I was really blessed to have that encouragement early on. And then also we were making pretty good money. By the time I got out of high school and went to the University of Montana, we were playing on the weekends for proms and things like that. We were primarily a rock and roll band, doing weekend dances for usually high schools and whatnot, but every once in a while we'd play the bars. And I made a really good living doing that. So, back in the 80s, we'd make $300 or $400 a piece on the weekend, and that was a lot of money back then.
So in the 90s, where did you start to kind of branch off on your own?
So yeah, our rock and roll band that we played the colleges, and that band ended in 1986. The name of that band was The Talk. We had been together for about 6 years and got to be pretty popular in the Northwest college town circuit and bar circuit. And then we got a little bit of recognition. We recorded 3 albums, and some of the music ended up down in LA, and a music producer picked up our music and put it in a movie. Like it was a made for TV movie, but I think it had Molly Ringwald in it and some great actors. So we kind of got us interested in life outside of Montana, and life, like maybe moving to Los Angeles and pursuing more of a career there. So that's what I did in 1986. I moved down to Los Angeles and was there through, 1994, 95. So I spent 8 or 9 years there. And when I moved down there, I kind of switched to country music full on. And there was a club down there called the Palomino Club in North Hollywood that allowed us to play original country music, which is kind of where I was going. At the time, Dwight Yoakam was really popular down there. There was some other great Southern California artists that really inspired me. And so we started getting recognized by some of the local music industry, doing our local country music. And by 1992, I had management in LA, and that's when we started having success with country music television and the Nashville network.
Cool. So is that around the time that you were approached for the Yahoo?
Yeah, that was 1996, but between 1992, probably 1990 actually, and 1996, I was doing lots of TV commercials. Down LA is also center of the West Coast advertising industry, and yodeling was kind of used in TV commercials a lot. So they started hiring me. I was probably one of the only yodelers down in that part of the world. So I got a lot of gigs doing TV commercials with a little bit of yodeling in it. And in 1996, the company that worked for Yahoo said, Yahoo needs a yodel. Will you do it for them? And I said, yeah. And so that happened in 1996, and the rest is history.
At that point in time, did you realize, was it like Yahoo's already big, or?
No, 1996, they were just going first year public, and they weren't worth very much, but they were rising really quickly. That was the time these internet companies just took off, and that was the search engine of Yahoo was the only, this was before Google, so they were the main search engine, and they became big really quickly between 1996 and 2000. I was watching the Super Bowl, I think in 1999, I heard my yodel at the end of one of their big commercials on the Super Bowl. So that was kind of a cool deal, and that's when they really started using the yodel, and it kind of turned into an audio logo for Yahoo. They used it in all their commercials. They used it on their emails. So if you were living around that time, just getting into the internet, the Yahoo would have been all over the place.
I definitely remember it. I was little, but I remember it. And my dad was like a tech guy in the early 2000s, so he's gonna love that. I'm gonna let him know that I talked to you. He's gonna really love that. So let's talk a little bit more about your albums. So you've been recording since 1994, is that correct?
Yeah, 1992, I think, was when we released our first album. That's when the videos started happening on country music television. CMT was 24 hours of music videos back then. And so they actually were looking for videos. That was kind of the beginning of country music videos being a big thing. So we sent them some videos that we took up at our ranch on the Two Medicine River, our family ranch up there, and they looked beautiful. They were shot professionally by a LA film crew. I was living down in LA at the time, had a credit card with I think a $7,000 limit on it. So I paid for everybody to come up to Montana and do a music video. It was a very small crew, but the quality was very high. And we started sending these videos to CMT, and they started playing them. And then the fans, by requesting these videos, we actually moved up into medium and high rotation with some of these videos.
I'll have to look some up on YouTube and see if I recognize any, because we always had CMT on.
Yeah.
When they were playing music videos all the time before
TNN, yeah.
So the last album you put out was in 2018, right?
No, it was actually, I think 2023, or maybe it's 2022. Time flies. So I think it was 2023. We had an album, our last album, called Bunchgrass, and it did really well. We charted on the Americana charts with it, first time for us, which is a big deal for a country band doing what we do, traditional country, charting on the Americana charts. And you're competing against so many different artists in a big wide genre. And so we felt we charted with our album on that was a big deal for us, and did really well with the single for radio for us. And so that was our last album, Bunchgrass, in 2023.
It is impressive to be on the Americana chart. I think like the music I enjoy listening to that's country is more on the Americana charts
right
now than like the mainstream country charts, because you're competing against Tyler Childers is considered Americana.
Sure. Yeah, there's some huge artists that we're competing against. So it's a tough chart. I think it's one of the most competitive charts out there now, really. It's turned into, alt country and Americana country, kind of falls into the same basket, as well as traditional, that all falls into the Americana basket. And there's so many different styles. It's kind of cool because it reminds me of music in the 1970s on the FM stations. They would have a wide ranging song list that wasn't so specific in terms of genre. And that's what I loved about the 70s. You could hear country music played alongside of pop music. It wasn't that uncommon if it was a good FM station. And FM stations also played album cuts. They weren't singles driven, so you heard a lot of great music, and a lot of great music kind of bubbled to the top in that era.
So are you working on anything new right now?
Yeah, continually writing and continually having ideas about songs. And then it's usually every couple of years, 2.5 years maybe, that I record now. So we're getting ready to record another album of original music. That'll probably happen in 2025 sometime, maybe springtime if things go well. So songwriting is just something I try to do. I get really busy in the summertime, so I usually don't do much then, but about now and all the way through springtime, when the weather gets cold and there's not much to do outside, it's when I sit in my songwriting room and try to, write songs and get enough for an album.
You have such an impressive catalog. It's huge. What kind of inspires you to keep writing music?
I guess it really is a labor of love, and since I've been doing it for over 30 years, it's also kind of a habit, and it's a creative outlet for me. Just something I need to do to keep my creative juices flowing and to feel normal. I have to write songs, or at least be thinking about an album. Thinking about things like that, listening to music. Music is such a huge part of my life. The older I grow, the more I understand and I'm in awe of the power of music and how it affects people and how it affects me. It's just a great gift from God to have music music in our lives, because we listen to music when we're happy, we listen to it when we're sad. It's just one of those wonderful things that a lot of people connect with, and we have a lot of hardcore fans that continually that stay in touch with me, and through Facebook and whatnot, they can write me little notes of saying how important our music is to them in their lives, and that's a huge deal for me. Whenever I get those notes, I feel real blessed to be able to be writing music that makes people happy.
That's awesome. All right. Are you going to bring your band with you?
No, I'll be playing solo,
Okay.
which I do a lot of nowadays. It's hard to get the band together sometimes. And I like playing solo. I think more of the songwriting side of what I do comes out. With the band, it's more, I think, definitely the dance element comes out a little bit more, and I don't mind being that, but I also like being a singer-songwriter and just doing me and my guitar and the song, and it either lives or fails.
Well, I think that you'll enjoy press play then, because one thing I always tell the artists is that it's kind of neat. You really have everybody's undivided attention.
Yeah, I love listening audiences, and luckily with what we do, our fans are usually a listening audience, especially when we do a theater. And then when we do the dances, a lot of people don't listen as much. It's nice having that ability to do that. We play a lot of cowboy dances and whatnot, but I think my favorite part of this point of my career is sitting down with my guitar and just singing music and singing songs and telling stories through music.
All right. Well, your show is November 1st, I believe.
It is.
It is.
I'm looking forward to it. So again, like you just mentioned, that it was kind of a sit-down audience that likes the singer-songwriter element of what the artists do. So I'm looking forward to that. And we have a lot of fans in the Flathead Valley. So hopefully we'll get to see some old friends and maybe some new friends.